Welcome to Transfer Talk. There are just 4 days to go until the window closes and new stories are coming in all the time. Just the transfer team are across all of them and Justin Hoyt is in the studio with us today. We also want to hear from you. Tweet the show at Sky Sports News, #Transfer Talk. This is Transfer Talk on a very sad day following the death of basketball legend Kobe Bryant, who was killed in a helicopter crash yesterday in California at the age of 41. Kobe and his 13-year-old daughter, Gianna, were among 9 people on board the helicopter. Kobe leaves behind his wife, Vanessa, daughters Natalia, Bianca and Capri. We'll have more tributes to this very sad news from 1 p.m. on Sky Sports News. Now we're going to start today's show with Tottenham and the future of Christian Eriksen, and this one is edging closer. He looks set to join Inter Milan. Eriksen has arrived in Milan and will have a medical today. Inter have shown a real desire to get the deal done as they look to beat Juventus to the Serie A title. An official announcement will be made after the medical. I look at these pictures here, but Barcelona did inquire about the playmaker but never followed it up with a concrete offer. All right, these pictures have just come in the last hour or so, mobbed by reporters in Italy as he headed over for that medical. Okay, so welcome to Keith Downey, Justin Hoyt, Ade Oladipo and Anton Tolui today. Ade, just tell us about the finances of this deal first of all.
Good ones if you're Christian Eriksen. We are hearing that a deal has been agreed between Inter Milan and Spurs. 16.8 million is that deal. But it's the wages, I think, what's made everyone balk, right? Everyone's looked at these wages and like, wow, you can understand why Christian Eriksen's wanted this move to happen. Basic wages, and I'm almost embarrassed to say basic here, are £260,000 per week. This could rise to £320,000 a week with bonuses included. I mean, that's 3 times as what he was earning, or what we're led to believe he was earning at Spurs. So, look, great deal for Christian Eriksen. Possibly as well a great deal for Tottenham. They valued him between 15 and 20. They've got 16.8. It could rise to 20 eventually. So, a good deal for everyone involved.
Yeah, and Justin, I'm just going to ask you how the Tottenham players might be feeling at the moment, because Christian Eriksen, absolutely quality player. So, obviously they want him to stay, but at the same time, they know he wants to go. So how are they feeling?
I feel they're a bit, obviously happy for him that he's, got a move that he's wanted. They've known probably for a long time now that he didn't want to be part of the club or wanted to move on, and I think it's a relief now for the players that he's finally moved on, and now they can focus on what they need to do, and the players now who are going to step up in his position are ready to take over from his role, and I'm sure they've learned a lot from him as a player and as an individual, as a Tottenham player.
And Anton, how happy will Inter be that they are finally getting their man? Because we know how much they've wanted him. They've tried hard, well, all of this month and probably previous as well.
Yeah, they've been desperate for him, haven't they? And you've got to remember, Inter are locked in a battle to try to eventually win Serie A for the first time in a long time. And Inter really need him. 3 1-1 draws on the bounce now. It's kind of seen their challenge falter a little, although Juve lost last night to Napoli. But yesterday's game against Cagliari was a perfect example of why they really need Eriksen's calmness and creativity. Inter went 1-0 up and completely dominated the game, but then conceded a late goal from Raider Nainggolan, who's on loan from Inter. And then they've completely lost their heads. Lautaro Martinez got sent off for dissent, effectively. Started punching the plexiglass on the way down to the tunnel. Conte and his backroom staff harangued the referee as he walked off. Kids were crying in the stands at San Siro. It was carnage. It was chaos. When what they needed was someone like Christian Eriksen, a level head, experience, pick a pass, find one of their fantastic front two, Martinez and Lukaku, and potentially win a game they should have won. They really could do with Eriksen. That's why they've been desperate. While this has been going on, Inter have, like I said, drawn the last 3 Serie A games 1-1. What they'd have done for Eriksen, they could have been in a much better position in the league if they got him in sooner.
And as Ade was saying there, when we were talking about the finances, Keith, from Tottenham's point of view, at least they actually are getting a fee.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose 16 million's not bad given the fact he only had sort of a few months left in his contract. But as far as Inter are concerned, I mean, this is a marquee signing. Take the money away. Forget about the fact it was 16 million, 66 million, whatever. They're getting Christian Eriksen. Inter and how long it took them to do a deal. So they've spent £60 million, but I mean the majority of this transfer from them will be in wages over the duration of his contract rather than the fee.
So a matter of time it looks until Inter Milan get Christian Eriksen and he leaves Tottenham. But what about a possible incoming at Tottenham, Anton?
Yeah, potentially exciting news for Tottenham. PSV Eindhoven have confirmed that Spurs made an inquiry for their 22-year-old winger, Steven Bergwijn. Now, he was left out of PSV's draw against FC Twente yesterday, but Bergwijn's taken to Instagram to kind of explain why that happened. He insists it's the club decision. He hasn't necessarily played his last game for the club, but there may well be movement over the next few days.
And with Bergwijn, though, he's not a replacement for Eriksen, though, is he? Because he's a different sort of player.
Not in terms of position, no, because he's a very direct winger. But he's an assist machine like Eriksen. You know, he's 10 assists so far this season in Eredivisie, 12 last season. His passing and his through balls are excellent, and I can see why Tottenham fans are excited. Right,
we're going to get much more on this a little bit later on. Plenty more coming up in the next hour on Transfer Talk, live to Villa's training ground for one and the latest from Arsenal. Right, welcome back to Transfer Talk. Apologies to any of the viewers who experienced any technical difficulties a few moments ago. I think it might have paused on a flattering picture of Keith looking like he was puckering up, actually.
I was making a very, very important point, my best of the window, actually.
You were, it was, Keith. I'll back you on that. But you missed what Anton said about a possible incoming at Tottenham. Tell us more about Steven Bergwijn, Anton.
Yeah, Paris Saint-Germain's not true. PSV Eindhoven even have confirmed that Tottenham have made an inquiry about the 22-year-old winger. Now, he was left out of PSV's draw against FC Twente yesterday, but he's taken to Instagram today to insist it was the club's decision. He hasn't necessarily played his last game for the club, and he's still committed. But you know, Tottenham potentially, if this develops over the next few days, could get a very exciting player.
But he's not a direct replacement for Eriksen, is he?
No, he's a winger. He's very much a winger, but his passing, his through balls, and his crossing are all superb. So Eriksen's creativity may well be channeled in a different way, I suppose. I mean, Bergwijn's 10 assists in 16 league games this season isn't exactly bad, is it? That's what Tottenham would love to see. But if anything, it's kind of a clear indication that Jose Mourinho is potentially going to change the style that we've seen. If we're going to lose the playmaker like Eriksen and bring in a more direct player like Bergwijn, who can play anywhere across the three behind Harry Kane, but he could become Harry Kane's best mate.
Well, you mentioned Harry Kane there, Anton, and I think this is probably a knock-on effect to Harry Kane's injury, isn't it? We've seen Lucas Moura in the last few weeks. We've seen Son as well having to play through the middle without there, so that again diminishes his options in the three plays behind that. And with Christian Eriksen going as well, he needs bodies in there. So we're saying it's not a direct replacement for Christian Eriksen, but with Christian Eriksen going, added to Kane's injury, they definitely need at least one in there.
The point you made as well about this not sort of Mourinho maybe changing his style, it's maybe Mourinho changing his philosophy as well, right? I mean, we're not used to seeing Mourinho buy prospects. We're used to seeing him buy kind of seasoned pros that you know what you're going to get, go in straight away and do what you do. Gedson Fernandes and now Bergwijn, definitely two good players, right? A lot of potential, but prospects. So I wonder if Mourinho is changing his philosophy as well, which would be interesting for Tottenham fans.
And there could be another sort of incoming at Tottenham as well. What's the latest on Lo Celso?
Yeah, so Lo Celso, that's interesting. Obviously, Tottenham, he's on loan, from Real Betis with an option to buy, not an obligation. What Mourinho has said, though, in the last couple of weeks is that he's making the obligation himself, really. He's saying he's putting in the performances which almost lead into that obligation. Now, there is talk about if they buy him now in this January transfer window, it'll be £26.5 million. If they leave it to the summer, it'll be £34 million. Do they wait until the summer, or do they go now? I think you should go now with Lo Celso, right? He's a fantastic player. I was at the Liverpool versus Tottenham game, and Liverpool were literally in second gear in that midfield, running that show. He came on with Lamela, completely changed the way they played. So an exciting player, not nearly already a direct replacement for Christian Eriksen, but can do a bit of everything. But what he does do, really, which fans are going to appreciate, is he works. He gets around the pitch, puts a foot in, and creates that pass as well. So, fantastic player, and you hope that Tottenham fans anyway will be hoping that they can get this deal done now rather than risk it until the summer. Yeah,
he's just had a few injury problems, hasn't he, since he's joined. But it makes sense to do it now, given that the fee isn't that huge, and, well, it goes up in the summer anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And again, Christian Eriksen's leaving. This is really a direct replacement for Christian Eriksen. You don't need to go out and spend money. He's someone that everyone knows at the club now. We've seen him grow, I think, before Mourinho came. He wasn't getting too many games. Obviously, you're injured as well. now Mourinho has came, it almost seems to be a person that's kind of a starting midfielder for them. So I think it's a good move. He's only, 23, 24, Argentine international as well. So lots of potential with him. And I think he could be at Spurs for a long time. He needs to find a home. He's been at PSG, he's been at Real Betis. It hasn't worked out. He needs to go somewhere where he can stay for a few seasons. I think he will do at Tottenham. All
right, well, let's move on to Danny Rose, because last week we were saying that he's wanted by 6 Premier League clubs, but only on loan. Tottenham want a permanent deal, or if they're to loan him out, they want a mandatory fee to happen in the summer, very much linked with Watford, Bournemouth and Newcastle. Justin, how surprised are you that Tottenham actually seem happy to let him go?
I'm quite surprised. He's been a great player for Tottenham, and he's a great player for England, and I feel he's a fantastic attribute to have in a team. I can see why there's a lot of teams after him at the moment, but I'm just surprised that, Tottenham want to, sell him on or move him on. Maybe they've got, other players that, in his position that they're looking at. Maybe he's lost his way a little bit, lost a bit of confidence, and, new manager coming in as new ideas, with other players. But I'm very surprised that, they want to let someone like Danny Rose go.
You went out on loan, then went back to your parent club and played. Mm-hmm. Danny Rose did that. I know he's been at Tottenham for longer. How hard will it be for him to leave?
I think it'd be very hard. Having gone on loan the first time, getting that opportunity to play and showcase himself, and then, going back to his, the club Tottenham and being there for so many years, I feel it's hard to leave after being there for so long. But I'm sure, if he does leave, or, when he does finally move on, he embrace that, and he'll do well wherever he goes, and I'm sure he'll find, a club if he does move and do very well, and, hopefully for him, he does well and achieves great things. And, Tottenham, if they do let him go, we'll be sad to see him leave, and I'm sure fans will be as well.
Yeah. Right, well, let's turn our attention to Aston Villa now. They've been relatively busy this month, bringing several additions, but could there be more? Let's cross live to the club's training ground and join Alice Piper, who's part of the transfer team. Alice, always good to speak to you. You've been speaking to new signing Mbwana Samatta this morning. And just give us a flavour of what he's had to say.
I have. Good afternoon, Tom. Yes, I'm here at Aston Villa's training ground, where, as you say, I've been catching up with their new signing, the striker Mbwana Samatta. Now, boy, have Aston Villa been crying out for a striker following that New Year's Day injury to Wesley. They've finally got their man. Samatta becomes the first Tanzanian to join a Premier League club. So he spoke a lot about the pride he feels, the pride his country feels, the support he's had from his country, from his friends, from his family. And he goes into a lot of detail about that first phone call he made family, in particular to his dad, and how emotional that was when he told him that he'd completed the paperwork, the medical was completed, he was coming to the Premier League. A really emotional phone call. So he opens up on that, which we'll be bringing you the interview tomorrow from 9 a.m. live on Good Morning Transfers. He also talks about the intensity in training. He feels that it's increased here at Aston Villa compared to his former club Genk, where he was captain, and he said it was an easy decision to move here, but it was difficult to leave his teammates behind. So he opens up on all of that. And also, of course, I ask him if he's got his initiation song ready, and he tells me what kind of song he'll be going for. So yeah, plenty to come with that interview tomorrow morning.
All right, well, we look forward to that. We're also looking forward to you speaking to Dean Smith as well. Can we expect any news on incomings?
Yeah, it's been a fairly lively transfer window, actually, I'd say, here at Aston Villa. They've brought in a Premier League winner in Danny Drinkwater. Obviously, John McGinn out for a couple of months, so that's left them fairly light in midfield. Obviously, they've brought in a goalkeeper as well, a World Cup winner in Pepe Reina, the former Liverpool goalkeeper, and that was following the New Year's Day injury to Tom Heaton. So they have had a lot of activity. They've also brought in striker Louis Barry from Barcelona, the teenage sensation, so I'll be asking a bit about him. And obviously, we've touched there on Samatta. But having said all that, Dean Smith has still reiterated he is looking for another striker, so I'll be asking for the latest on that, and basically just asking him to assess how he would think that the transfer window has gone so far. So yeah, I'm looking forward to catching up with Dean Smith in just a minute.
Great stuff, Alice. Speak to you later. Now it's time for State of Play with Keith.
Manchester United remain in talks with Sporting Lisbon for Bruno Fernandes. I think I've said that once or twice over the last few weeks. Crystal Palace have received a bid from PSV for Dutch international fullback Patrick van Aanholt. It's understood that bid, though, will be rejected by Palace. West Ham have had an offer for the USA centre-back Aaron Long, rejected by New York Red Bulls. Meanwhile, Burnley have recalled Naki Wells from his loan spell at QPR. Bristol City are in talks to sign the striker, and Leeds are interested in a deal to sign RB Leipzig striker Jean-Kevin Augustin.
Let's move on to Arsenal. We're going to go back to Keith, actually, because tell us what we know about their pursuit of a centre-back.
Yeah, it's Pablo Mari, isn't it? He has been... yeah, we were trying to get that one right earlier, weren't we? He has been over in London this weekend having his medical after talks between Arsenal and his club, Flamengo. Flew in on Saturday to have that medical, has been undergoing that for the last 48 hours over the weekend. But what we can tell you now is that he's flown back to Brazil. But Arsenal fans don't fret at this stage. We're told that that was always the plan, and that the two clubs remain in talks. And it's the talks is over a loan deal until the end of the season with an option to make it permanent. So yeah, this player who was at Manchester City, never featured, went out on loan I think 3 times, could come back and make his debut or his Premier League debut for Arsenal under Mikel Arteta, his first signing. You can only imagine that Mikel Arteta knows him from his time working under Pep at Man City. Yeah,
Anton, tell the Arsenal fans what we do know about him.
Well, he's a left-sided centre-back. Basically, it's a bit of a dichotomy here. You can either look at it one way or another. You look at it as, kind of Keith just mentioned, signed about 3.5 years ago by Manchester City, not long after they formalised a link with Girona. He was sent out there. He's also been sent out to the Spanish second division again at Depor. He's also went to the Eredivisie and played for Breda. Again, they weren't even in Europe at the time. So kind of 3 relatively nondescript loan spells, then sold on for £1 million last summer to Flamengo, where he's absolutely blossomed. He's gone on to win the Copa Libertadores, obviously the South American Champions League, and was part of the team at Flamengo, took Liverpool to extra time in the World Club Cup final as well. So you either look at it, a player that didn't make it at City, was rejected eventually and, you know, kind of farmed out for not a lot of money, or a player that's just played in the World Club Cup final. Glass half full, glass half empty. I'm not quite sure. But like you said, Mikel Arteta would have at least spent a couple of pre-seasons with the player and know him a little bit, but it's a big call to try to fill up Arsenal's potential defensive problems.
Well, Justin, you're a former Arsenal defender, and last time you were on here a few weeks ago, you thought that Arsenal needed a centre-back. So in that sense, it's positive news.
Yeah, I think it's positive news for Arsenal that they're looking at a centre-back, and, you know, looks like they're going to get the centre-back they want. And, you know, having Arteta working with the player before, you know, at City, you can only see why he wants him in at the club.
Yeah, and when I want to ask you, kind of as a defender, sometimes you get managers and it's quite clear they want a left-footed centre-back and a right-footed centre-back if they're going to play with 2 centre-backs, right? I mean, Fabio Capello at England, always he wanted either Lescott or Upson alongside a right-footer. Have you had it where it's been so obvious that the manager has wanted it like that, and can they not maybe see past it?
I don't think they can. I think it's just a common goal that you have a left-sided centre-back and a right-sided centre-back. I think that's just a common, you know, law in football that you need that. I mean, you know, sometimes when it's not possible, people have 2 right-footed centre-backs. But I think generally managers nowadays want a left-sided and a right-sided, and you can only see why playing out from the back, like a lot of teams want to do now, you do technically need a left-sided and a right-sided footed players.
Does it add that much balance? Like if you're playing it as one of the full-backs, does that help you that much, or is it kind of in the mind?
I think it kind of helps. Me being like a right-sided player, I find it easier playing with someone who's right-footed, or, you know, playing on someone who's left-footed. Is just the way, you know, you position yourself and you open yourself up with the ball and without the ball. You know, playing with a right-sided player on the left side, the way they open up the ball and give the ball to you and pass the ball to you, it's completely different when a left-sided player is there. So it's kind of like, you know, when you're playing out from the back, it's positional-wise and, you know, how they open it, body up with the ball and without the ball. And I just feel it's easier to have a left-sided player on the left side and a right-sided player on the right side. It's just easier to play out from the back like that.
It'll be interesting, on Marie, it'll be really interesting to see if he comes straight into the team. You know, without that Premier League experience behind him, there's no doubt they need a new centre-back, and obviously Chambers out until the end of the season, Mustafi's been struggling. They need someone in there. And we have obviously been saying all window long that there will be no significant expenditure from Arsenal in this January window. Now this goes along with that, doesn't it? Because it's a loan deal with an option, so obviously that payment would come in the summer, or whether that's staggered into next season, we don't know. But it'll be really interesting to see. Yes, he's been playing a lot of football and at a high level, but it'll be really interesting to see if he comes straight into that starting 11 without any Premier League experience.
That's an income. Are you surprised by maybe a lack of outgoings to maybe generate money, Ade?
Yes and no. You think that everyone would almost be on, I don't know, sort of a new chance or a second chance until the summer when he gets a chance to really look at that team, gets a few months to look at it. Of the players that you thought might go, Granit Xhaka was one. Obviously, there was a deal agreed or personal terms agreed with her for Berlin. Obviously, that issue with Unai Emery towards the end of Emery's reign. So you thought that could be one. And maybe Mustafi as well. Mustafi, openly and honestly, has not had the best of seasons, right? I think his playing time's gone down considerably in the last sort of 12 to 18 months. Arteta did give him the dreaded vote of confidence recently, saying, look, he's still in the plans, but improvements do need to be made. But he's a good person behind the scenes in the training ground as well. He's only 27, so he can make those improvements. But I guess with defenders coming in, there's obviously talk about Boateng possibly as well. And now with Mari coming in, you do think maybe Mustafi's time might be coming to an end at the end of the season. But I do expect a lot of changes from Arsenal at the end of the season. My only question with Arsenal, with them now, 10 points off Champions League, will it be a problem in terms of keeping their star players? Will we be able to keep Aubameyang and Lacazette if we don't make Champions League football? That's going to be interesting times at Arsenal in the summer. Very interesting times.
Yeah, well, we've got almost half an hour without having a proper chat about Bruno Fernandes. All right, well, we have. But now it's time to go into it further. All right, your daily reminder that he still hasn't signed for Manchester United. Right, this is what we know. Manchester United remain in talks with Sporting Lisbon for Fernandes. They're willing to pay just over £46 million. Sporting Lisbon's valuation has still not been met. Last week we reported that the two sides were £10 million apart in their valuation. Okay, Justin, if you're the player in this situation, how frustrating is it?
I think I'd be very frustrated with the situation. Firstly, thinking, everything's done. You go into a new club, like Man United, and next minute you're finding out it's still not been done. So I feel he's possibly at home now, just frustrated, just wanting to get it over and done with, and settled to find his, a place to live with him and his family, and just get on the training field and get to work, and just wants to sign and just get playing and get going, rather than just sitting there waiting, trying to figure out what's happening.
Risking injury.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah,
because you never know what could happen.
Training matches, whatever, it could scupper the whole thing.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And in terms of who he'd be kind of blaming for the fact that the move hasn't happened, does he blame Sporting Lisbon because he thinks their value is, asking price is too high? Does he blame Manchester United for not meeting the valuation?
I think he just blames both. I think at the end of the day, if it was me, I'd be just saying, just get it done. Whatever it takes, just get it done. I want to be, part of United, just get it done. And then just let's forget about it and just get this all done and dusted. And I just want to play football at the end of the day.
Bruno Fernandes has been through such a tumultuous time at Sporting Lisbon as well. This is the club that brought him back to Portugal after he, kind of came to a natural end in Serie A as a young man. And he's been through sort of, title challenges. He's played in Europe's elite. But they've also had huge backroom problems, the president, financial problems. His complicated contract where he thought he was leaving in the summer, renegotiating his contract in November, thinking, great, here we go, I'll leave now. Now he's not leaving. I feel like just the guy doesn't know whether he's coming or going. He hasn't known for the last 6 months, 2 years, really.
Yeah, in normal life, if the difference is, let's say, £10 between two people, you just go halfway and say £5, but they're not doing that with the 5 million. Still £10 million difference
to £5.
Yes, I know, but I couldn't do it with the millions, could I? I had to go down to a more realistic sum of money. Talking about Manchester United, we know that they also want a striker. Over the weekend, we were reporting that Odion Ighalo and Islam Slimani are two of a number of players that Manchester United have looked at as they tried to bring in a striker on loan following the long-term injury to Marcus Rashford. OK, Ade, what's the reaction been to this?
Not positive, has it? Let's be honest. You go over social media and that's a direct indication. Man United fans are not happy. They were linked with Haaland, they didn't get that one. And then you just look at Man United's back catalogue of strikers they've had in the last sort of 10 years. And it's just been superstar over superstar after superstar. They hear the names Ighalo and Slimani. And look, these are good players that could fill the hole right now that Rashford's left void. But it's not gone down too well. From a Nigerian standpoint, with Ighalo, it kind of was treated with almost serenaded in Nigeria. They love this news. Nigeria and possibly playing for Manchester United. United is the biggest sort of fan-based club in Nigeria. So it went down really well in Nigeria, but not so much with United fans based in Britain. Let's just say that.
And in terms of these two strikers, Keith, they are actually out-and-out strikers. Whereas with Martial, Rashford, Greenwood, it's quite fluid because they can play out wide and as a striker. These two are out-and-out strikers. That says something about what Solskjaer wants, the style of play.
Well, it's whether he wants that long term or not, because obviously it was his decision to let Lukaku go in the summer and kind of almost elevate Rashford to become the number 9 and at times Martial as well. I've been saying for a long time now, there's so much pressure on those two, particularly Rashford, over the last few months. And obviously the problems have come home to roost, haven't they? But yeah, they are number 9s, definitely. With Ighalo, you would think I think he's probably scored more goals in the Premier League, had a better impact. I remember him at Slimani at his time in Newcastle when he came up on loan and he was injured for like 90%. I think he actually only played in that 5 months. I think he only played maybe 2 or 3 minutes of football, like he hardly played at all. So in Slimani, I don't know what his situation is now, but are they getting another player who might end up out of the picture through injury? You would think with Ighalo that would be the safer bet, but I must admit, when that story broke over the weekend or on Friday, I had to read it twice. Yeah. I couldn't believe that was a player's out.
Felt very 2014, didn't
it?
It didn't feel like a Manchester United move in 2020.
Yeah, a lot of people getting in touch on the hashtag transfer talk, but most of them are Leeds fans, very, very happy about their new signing. Good news for you, we're going to be talking about the EFL next as Leeds get their man in Jean-Kevin Augustin. Plus, there could be developments at Newcastle over the coming days.
Welcome back. Now let's take a look at what's happening around the EFL. Let's start with Leeds United. They've signed French striker Jean-Kevin Augustin. He's joined the club on loan from RB Leipzig with a view to a permanent deal. Burnley have recalled Nahki Wells from his loan spell at QPR. This may be good news for Bristol City, who are in talks to sign the striker who scored 13 goals in the Championship this season. QPR, though, would like to keep him. Nottingham Forest are also interested. And their fullback, Matty Cash, is wanted by West Ham. Their boss, David Moyes, admits West Ham did make an inquiry for the 22-year-old, but says they stopped short of making a bid. And Swansea City head coach Steve Cooper insists he would like to do some business before Friday's deadline, but it'll be a case of players having to leave first to free up funds.
Yeah, a couple on that Jean-Kevin Augustin coming in on hashtag transfer talk. Josh said the Whites are going up, having signed him. And a different Joshua, this one, says Augustin to fire us to the Premier League. Right, we're going to stay in the Championship now, though, and get to Nottingham Forest. We've sent one member of our transfer team out on the road. Michael Bridge is at the club's training ground alongside one of their players. Michael.
Yes, thanks very much, Tom. Good afternoon to everyone on the Transfer Talk team. Now, it's going to be a very, very busy week for many clubs in the Premier League, Championship League One, potentially at Nottingham Forest as well. I want to talk as well about Spurs as well. They could be busy, but who better to talk about these clubs than Michael Dawson, former Spurs captain, currently at Forest. Michael, it's going well here for Forest.
Yeah, great. We've had a great start to the season, over halfway now, and we're right in the mix. Look, probably 6 weeks ago, you looked at West Brom and Leeds, probably 12 to 15 points ahead of us, and now you're only 4 or 5 points and everyone's chasing. So the pressure's on them, but we're performing well. We had a good Christmas, picked up some points, and we've got Brentford tomorrow night, another team that's in form, and we'll look forward to it.
I know you don't want to be knocked out of any cup, but do you feel a bit of a relax that you had the weekend off? Brentford played, of course.
Yeah, I mean, look, Brentford should have been playing on Saturday, and they made changes. The manager went to watch them, expecting maybe not to see as many changes, see how they're going to play and what it's going to be like tomorrow night. They made changes, so they'll be as fresh as what we are, and a team that's in form along with ourselves. And like I say, we go there looking to keep this run of 6 that we're unbeaten in going.
Now, it's the January window. Now, I remember many years ago, you and Andy Reid signed for Tottenham Hotspur in the January window. Tell us what that was like back in the day. Yeah,
15 years ago, 31st of January, it was... Do you know, it's a hard time to move in January. You know, myself and Reedy left here, drive around the M25 to Chigwell to the training ground. Everything's done. You've got medicals to have, which takes time. And obviously myself was lastminute.com. We made it just over the line, and you know, you try and hit the ground running, which myself at the time had a stress fracture in my shin. Reedy went straight in the team, so I had to be patient and probably waited just 5 or 6 games before the end of the season. So January can be a hard time for players to move. Getting new surroundings, family settled, it's hard. So it's about getting the right players in fitness, getting them settled in as soon as possible, and hitting the form that they need to be. Because tend to be in January, you're going into a club that's maybe not high flying, and there's a play you're going in to try and improve it.
So yeah, what did you do? Did you have to stay in a hotel for a few weeks? What is it like for some players, or were they renting a flat? What happens?
Yeah, myself, I was in a hotel for a few weeks and got a little flat to get us settled as soon as possible. You're moving, you're meeting your teammates, and it can be really hard. You know, especially lads with families. I couldn't imagine doing it now at this moment in my career with upheaval of everything. But look, it's part and parcel of football. Players move around quite often, and you've got to hit the ground running.
Finish on Forest, but just stay on Spurs for now. Plenty of changes since you've left. How have you assessed their season?
Up and down. You know, I was really surprised to see Maurizio leave, and when Jose went in, he had a quick reaction. That top four, you've got your top three with Liverpool, Man City, and Leicester. They, for me, will finish in the top four of the Champions League spot. Fourth is up for grabs. It could be one of many teams that are going for it. Chelsea obviously in that position at the moment in time, but there's teams at 4 or 5 points behind that'll certainly be looking, and Spurs will be one of those. And
you've got a very settled squad here. The manager likes to keep it settled, but maybe one or two that you'll be watching deadline day on Sky Sports News.
Yeah, deadline day is always one you probably don't want to be involved in. It's stressful, like I said, but look, yeah, you always watch it, see who goes everywhere. Look, Sabri's come in at the start of the season. He's done a fantastic job, got us right in the mix where we want to be. Hopefully we're going to stay there, and like I say, hopefully we'll make the top two. But we keep our feet on the ground, keep performing. I'm sure there'll be more ups and downs come the end of the season, which football brings. Look, he's got a settled squad. We've got a great group of players at this football club, great togetherness, and that's what you need in this, because it is relentless, a championship. You have your ups and downs, which we've had, but we're on a good run of form, and that can long may continue.
Well, you can watch deadline day, feet up, because you're going nowhere. Michael Dawson, thank you so much. That's us for now. Plenty of transfers throughout the week, and of course, deadline day. Nottingham Forest, they're at Brentford tomorrow night.
Thanks, Michael. Mike, obviously the new Nottingham Forest manager, saying that Michael Dawson is not for sale. OK, great stuff. Thank you. Right, don't forget to download the latest episode of the Transfer Talk podcast, iTunes, Spreaker and the Sky Sports website. Next on Transfer Talk, we'll be asking Justin about some of his transfer deadline experiences, plus news from Newcastle. I must admit, looking at Twitter over the last couple of days, yours and Pete Graves' Twitter, you've had loads and loads of tweets about a Newcastle takeover. Yeah. But don't worry, this is Transfer Talk, all right? We're going to keep it on the field, all right? They've got two in the door. What else can the fans expect?
Yeah, so the two in the door so far, as you know, Valentino Lazaro, who arrived last week, but they couldn't quite get him registered in time to play in the FA Cup on Saturday. And then, of course, Nabil Bentaleb, the former Spurs midfielder. Both of those loan deals with options to buy, but I think combined the option would cost Newcastle £29 million in the summer. So potentially it's a significant outlay at this moment in time, a couple of £1 million. But definitely the priority right now that Steve Bruce has got these two in, is a left back or a left wing back in the 3-5-2 that he plays. Now, Danny Rose is a name that's been mentioned. I asked Steve Bruce about Danny Rose on Friday, and he said he's a top player, but then said he doesn't want to talk about him. So that kind of said to me, he's a player that he wants in. Justin was talking about him earlier. He's still an England international. He's 29 years old. He's in his peak years. He would be a real coup for Newcastle if they managed to get him in. And with only Matt Ritchie as their only recognised left-sided player, I mean, Matt Ritchie isn't really even an out-and-out left-back anyway. He's more of a left winger. He's been filling in there for the best part of a year or so now.
He's done well.
He has done very well, yeah, and he's kind of made that position his own until he got injured. But with the injuries to both Dummett and Jetro Willems, who's returned back home now, back to Eintracht Frankfurt, it leaves him with just the one player there. So I would expect Newcastle to bring in a left back or a left wing back, should I say, by Friday. Whether that's Danny Rose or not, I'm not too sure. I think that would probably be Steve Bruce's number one choice. If he can't get him, he's going to have to look elsewhere. And then as a striking situation, we've been speaking about it all window, how much they need a number 9. In fact, even on Saturday after the FA Cup tie that they drew 0-0 with Oxford, he said he bemoaned afterwards his lack of attacking options on the bench. That is because he has both Andy Carroll and Dwight Gale both out injured. But the feeling I was getting from Bruce a couple of weeks ago was that the striker wasn't his priority. But then after Saturday, the way he was talking, it felt as though he does want to add in that position. But there's a lot of work to get a left back and a striker in by Friday, and I think the left back would be the priority right now. It'd be really interesting to see if he does manage to get Danny Rose, because that would, in my opinion, be a really good signing for Newcastle.
I'm going to get more on Danny Rose in a moment, but a lot of Newcastle fans, we can't ignore them. They're asking about Paco Alcácer on loan as a striker.
as I understand it, a non-starter at this stage. Big name, obviously played for some big clubs, commanded big transfer fees. There was a report at the weekend that Newcastle were in talks over a loan deal. I'm sorry to dash the hopes of any Newcastle United fans out there, but as it stands, the information I'm getting is that will not happen unless things change between now and Friday.
Okay, the one I want to ask Justin about Danny Rose. I know we were talking about him earlier on. Now, he's wanted by Newcastle.
Trying to start trouble?
No, I'm not. I'm trying to quash trouble, right? He had a great loan spell at their biggest rival, Sunderland, right? He was excellent,
Yeah, it was
right?
really good,
You had a loan spell at Sunderland, did very well there as well, playing left back like Danny Rose was too, right? Once a player knows what that rivalry is like, and there are lots of ex-Sunderland players now at Newcastle, and it's happened quite a few times, do you think someone who was loved so much by those Sunderland fans for that short spell and clearly loved the club back could actually make that move to Newcastle? Could you have done it?
I think at first you'd think about it. I think it'd be a hard choice to make. But I feel at the end of the day, you can make that. You can make the move. It would eat you inside, but you can make that move, you know, having playing for such a rival club. But
It's not what I wanted you to say. Just
no, I know, but, you know, at the end of the day, football's football. You'll still have the love for the club, you know, no matter what happens. I mean, I'll still have the love for Sunderland and Middlesbrough, you know, but me personally, I don't think I could play for Newcastle. I haven't played for Sunderland, but
you pulled it back there.
being in Danny Rose's situation, he might, but I don't know. It'd be a tough choice to make. It would be really tough for him to make the decision, but me personally, I don't think he'll go.
Right, either way, it looks like Keith is going to have a busy final week of this window at St James's Park. Right, but what about Leicester flying high in the Premier League? But Brendan Rodgers is hopeful of making an addition this week. We know he wants a centre-back, and that would likely be a loan deal with the option of making it permanent in the summer. Now, whoever that is likely to replace Filip Benkovic, who's expected to go out on loan to the Championship. Right, Anton, does it make sense that Leicester want a centre-back?
Yeah, I think so. You look at it recently, 1 clean sheet in the last 9 Premier League games. I think tells its own story, really. I mean, Leicester are still having a fantastic season, but, you know, post mid-December, they've had a dip in form, fluctuating results, and there's absolutely no harm in competition for places at centre-back. They've got a very settled partnership with Soyuncu and Evans, but there's no harm in challenging them, especially when both their forms dipped ever so slightly. This is exactly, it's been hypercritical, but, you know, if you want to be in the top 3, these are the levels you have to maintain, I suppose. So, and it also makes sense for Filip Benkovic, potentially the one to be out the door. If they want him to go and do a Tomori effectively and go and get more Championship experience, more game time experience that doesn't potentially cost them when they want that push higher up the league, which Benkovic isn't used to in the Premier League.
Who have they been looking at, Ade?
Yeah, I mean, well, they haven't really replaced Harry Maguire, have they, really? I mean, he left so late in the summer transfer window, so it wasn't enough time to really get someone in, just for numbers, maybe not starting, but just for numbers. They know they've been looking at, their number 1 target is Yannick Vestergaard from Southampton. It's been, I think it's fair to say, an up and down season for him so far. Southampton fans aren't really too pleased with the way he's been performing recently. There was a lot of talk about him maybe going back to Werder Bremen in this January transfer window. That hasn't happened. So there is talks about him going to Leicester. This was kind of put out there to Southampton fans, and I think it's fair to say they were happy to see him go. But again, up and down, he's only 27, massive centre-back, 6'6", so you know he's going to win those aerial duels as well. But I don't know if it's going to work for him there. Again, a big dip in form this season. When Leicester played Southampton and won that game 9-0, he was part of that team and got taken off at half-time. And since then, it has been in and out for a long time for him. If they don't get him, they are looking at Ben Davies as well from Preston North End. Again, great centre-back, left-sided centre-back as well, so he can cover that left-back position. He's been doing well at Preston for the last 3 seasons, was sent out on loan a lot before that. The last 3 seasons, he really established himself as a first-team player. So those are the 2 they're looking at. I don't know which one they're going to go for. Yannick Vestergaard seems like good money. They're looking at around 15 to 20 million for him. And again, Danish international, 27, Premier League experience, European experience as well, with Borussia Mönchengladbach. Did I pronounce that correct?
You did, well done.
So then it's good. It's a good move for him, I think.
You almost feel it sounds as though it's going to be someone who has to be content, certainly to start with a place on the bench. Because obviously the 2 that they've got in Evans and Soyuncu have made that position their own this season. So maybe you say the Southampton supporters maybe might be pleased to see him go. Maybe, you know, he would be quite happy to go in and play second fiddle until perhaps an injury or a loss of form. But like you say, it sounds as though it's someone to bring in terms of numbers, rather than the starting 11 at Leicester.
And that brings us to Filip Benkovic, who we've been expecting to move out on loan. Justin, you did that when you were younger as well. He's had his loan spell at Celtic, and if he's been kind of content so far in the first half of the season, to just challenge for the first team without getting in, it's probably the right thing for him to do to get first team football now for the second half.
Yeah, I feel it's perfect to go on loan, to gain that valuable, regular weekend football, playing every week, even midweek games as well, and getting that experience you need to then step in for when you need to be at your club that you're at. And I feel being a young player, I think that's the best thing to do, is go out and get that experience and playing, because there's nothing more frustrating as a younger player sitting there, waiting for your chance, when you can technically go on loan, gain that valuable playing week in, week out, getting that experience, and then knowing that you'll be ready for when you go back to your club to play, and even being in the spotlight for yourself, and opposing yourself and showing other clubs that, look, this is who I am, this is the type of player I'm capable of doing on and off the field, and you're just ready. You just got that valuable experience.
Though, sorry to interrupt you there, Tom. I do wonder, though, as a young player, do you not lose confidence every time you go back to your parent club and they send you back out on loan again? Benkovic has been to Celtic, done okay there, he's now come back to Leicester. I mean, he would have thought this is a great opportunity. With only real three recognised centre-backs, Weggs Morgan, Johnny Evans and Soyuncu, he would have thought this is a chance to kind of bed in and be in that squad. He's been sent out on loan again. Won't he lose confidence?
But there's a different thing about being in the squad and being in the team,
yeah.
Isn't there?
Yeah, I think there's nothing... it's better being in part of the starting 11, really. Yeah. When you're just travelling, you're in the squad, you're like just watching, and you're just feeling like, well, I want to be there playing every week. I want to be getting that feeling, waking up in the morning thinking, right, I'm in the starting 11, rather than thinking during the game, or training, I'm thinking, well, I'm just sitting there thinking, I might not play, I might be in the squad, I might not be in the squad. Whereas, every week you're training, you're thinking, right, Friday, right, I know I'm going to be in the 11. Saturday, right, my focus is now. Pitch ready, I'm ready, know my job, know everyone around me, I know what I need to do, and I think you can't beat that.
So in terms of, while we've got you here, Justin, we want to talk a little bit about deadline day, and you've of course been involved in it for several years. What's it like for a player who might be on the move on deadline day, because it's happened to you before?
Yeah, so for me it was you're just sitting there waiting for either your phone to ring, the agent to tell you, or to tell you moving, or you go into the club, you're training every day, and for me, it was like I was sitting there waiting, knowing that I was going to move.
What was the move to and from?
So I went from Middlesbrough to Mill. At the time, it wasn't working out for me at Middlesbrough, and it was time for me to move on. And, I was just sitting there, going train and come back, and I'm just waiting for a phone call to say, right, you're moving. And literally, on a Sunday, I got a phone call saying, right, you're moving to Millwall. And it's like, literally, you just have to pack up everything you've got, drive down to London, and that was it, really. And at the time, there's a lot to think about. You got family, you got to think about. You got to find somewhere to live, in that short space of time. And it's like, for me, I literally had to drive down from, Middlesbrough down to London. And at the time, I'd forgot my passport. So then I had to drive back. And there's other things I forgot as well, because in the whole, thinking, right, I've got to move, you just got to pick up wherever you can, because literally you've got to be in training on Monday morning.
You don't need a passport from Middlesbrough to London,
No, but I still needed it just in case I needed to go anywhere, because I was going on international duty as well, So I just needed it just in case, because you would never know when you're going to go back.
Yeah,
because,
well, you did it the last few years, because of course you've been playing out in America. Last time you were on, I was worried that you wouldn't be able to make this appearance because you might have signed for a club by now. What's the latest for you? You've got about 10 seconds. Yeah,
I've got great news. Hopefully I'll have a club in the next few days, and a new team that's starting out, Miami Club Football.
Wow.
It's a new franchise, a new organisation. I'm happy to be a part of that, and not just a player, I'll be a coach as well. So that's good news.
That's great news. Make sure you tell us when it's all done. We want to be the ones first with it. Justin, Keith, Anton, Ade, thank you very much indeed. And to Michael and Alice, who've been out on the road. Good Morning Transfers returns in the morning at 9 a.m. And this show, Transfer Talk, is back at midday until 1 o'clock. But you've got more tonight, because Dharmesh Jath and Carvis Solokol return with the Transfer Show from 7 p.m. Coming up, we'll have more tributes to a sporting legend, the all-time NBA great Kobe Bryant, who's been killed in a helicopter crash at the age of 41.